What if I told you that one of the most dangerous, most influential books on power ever written wasn't written by a king or a general, but by a prisoner? We're talking about a 500-year-old playbook so ruthless, so brutally honest, that it's been a secret guide for leaders and a terrifying warning for everyone else. Today, we're diving into Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince. Right from the start, Machiavelli hits you with a question that gets to the very heart of what it means to rule. Just think about it. If you were in charge and you could only have one, which would you pick? Would you want your people to love you or to fear you? And his answer? It's just ice cold. He argues that love is fickle. People are self-interested, he says, and they'll break that bond of love the second it's inconvenient for them. But fear is held in place by a dread of punishment, and that never goes away. For Machiavelli, it's all about stability and control, and fear is simply the more reliable tool for the job. So you have to wonder, who writes a book like this? A born tyrant? Some kind of cynical monster? Well, the reality is actually way more human, and a lot more desperate. See, this Guides of Power wasn't written from a throne. It was written from the absolute ruins of a man's life. You have to picture this. For almost 20 years, Niccolò Machiavelli was a big deal, a respected, powerful diplomat for the Florentine Republic. He was in the rooms where it happened. And then, bam, 1512. The powerful Medici family comes roaring back into power, they crush the Republic, and Machiavelli loses everything. He's accused of being part of a conspiracy, he's thrown in prison, he's tortured, and then he's banished to his little family farm. And this is the part you really have to understand. The Prince wasn't some academic, philosophical essay he wrote for fun. It was, for all intents and purposes, a job application, a desperate Hail Mary pass to prove his worth to the very same people who had just destroyed his career, the Medici. He was basically screaming, "Hey, you need me. I know how this game is played better than anyone alive." He even said as much in a letter to a friend. He argued that his long years of service, which left him totally broke, were the ultimate proof of his skill and his loyalty. So he poured every ounce of that painful, hard-won experience into this one little book, gambling everything that it would get him back in the game. So what was actually in this radical resume of his? Well, at its core is this idea that to survive, a ruler can't just be one thing. He has to be a master of two completely different natures. Machiavelli uses this brilliant metaphor. He says, a leader has to be both a lion and a fox. The lion, right, that's your brute strength. The lion can scare off the wolves, all those external threats. But the lion is kinda dumb. It'll walk right into a trap. That's where the fox comes in. The fox is cunning, clever. It can see the snares from a mile away. But the fox is weak. It can't fight the wolves. You need to be both. Force without cunning is reckless, and cunning without force is useless. And this idea leads to his most chilling advice. A ruler must look like he's merciful, faithful, and religious. He has to put on a good show. But behind the scenes, he has to be ready to be cruel, ruthless, and just plain awful if that's what it takes to protect the state. Be a great actor. Why? Because most people only see what's on the surface, and they judge by results. If you win, if you hold on to power, no one's going to question how you did it. The ends, as they say, justify the means. Okay, but what about all the stuff a leader can't control? You know, random chance, chaos, pure bad luck. Well, Machiavelli had a powerful metaphor for that too. He called it fortuna. Now, when Machiavelli talks about fortune, he's not talking about good luck charms. No! For him, fortuna is chaos incarnate. It's a violent, raging river that can flood without warning and destroy everything you've built. He figured this unpredictable force controls about half of our lives. But, and this is a huge but, the other half, he said, that's up to us. So how do you possibly stand up to a flood like that? Well, he says you do two things. First, you prepare. When times are good, you build your defenses. You build dikes and canals, politically, militarily, so when the crisis hits, you can channel that destructive force. And second, you have to be audacious. You have to be bold. Cautious leaders, he warned, just get swept away by the current. It's the risk takers who can actually bend fate to their will. And that brings us to maybe the most shocking, most infamous line in the entire book. He argues that fortune, being like a woman, is more impressed by men who are aggressive and bold than by those who are cautious and timid. It's a brutal, unsettling metaphor for sure, but it perfectly captures his belief. A real leader has to be willing to act ruthlessly to grab control of destiny itself. So, as you can imagine, for 500 years, advice like this has started some pretty fierce arguments. Was Machiavelli a teacher of evil? Is this book literally a handbook for tyrants? Or is there something else going on here? There are pretty much two main schools of thought here. On one side, you have people who say he was just the first political realist. He wasn't telling us how things should be. He was telling us how they are. He was just giving his new bosses a practical tool. But on the other side, there's this fascinating theory that it's all just brilliant satire. The argument goes, how could a man who served a republic so loyally actually endorse tyranny? Maybe, just maybe, the advice is so over the top that he was secretly exposing the playbook of tyrants to warn everybody else. But here's the thing. Whatever he really meant, the book's influence has been absolutely massive and totally undeniable. I mean, his name literally became an adjective. Machiavellian. Today, we use it to describe anyone who is cunning, scheming, or just plain ruthless in order to get power. His name is forever tied to the dark arts of politics that he was the first to write down so clearly. And this brings us to the final, crushing irony of this whole story. That desperate resume, the book he poured his entire soul into, Lorenzo de' Medici, the guy it was dedicated to, probably never even read it. Machiavelli never got the job. He died years later, a total outcast from the world of power he understood better than almost anyone. His personal gamble failed completely, but his book became immortal. Which leaves us with one last question. For you, it's been 500 years. Has anything really changed? Do we still see leaders who act like both the lion and the fox, who put on a show of being virtuous while being ruthless behind the scenes, who believe that winning is the only thing that matters? Just look around, at politics, at business, and ask yourself, is this ancient, dark playbook still the script for power today?